A few days ago, a group of scientists, doctors, environmental organizers, and concerned citizens got together and they called for the urgent stop to the deployment of 5G. They said that it's been proven harmful to human bodies, that this is an experiment on humanity, and that this should be called a crime under international law.
"5G is a weapon. It's used by the military. Do you know these 5G millimeter wave technologies are used to scatter crowds? They drive up in this technology when they want to scatter a cloud, and they put out these frequencies in a much higher power than 5G will be initially with us, but the same frequencies. And people scatter because they get the feeling their skin is on fire, because the human body, including the skin, is an antenna. It interacts with frequencies and it receives and transmits information. At the cutting edge of understanding of DNA, scientists know that DNA is a receiver-transmitter of information.
I have to tell people 5G story. It's bigger than the Holocaust. It's bigger than anything you've ever heard. I'm Mark Steele. Anybody who hasn't heard me. I'm a weapons systems head-up display expert. I'm one of the leading experts in the world. I've actually broke cover in relation to this, and the reason I became an expert was because I invented 5G as a killer. Do not believe a single word I say. Not one. I want you to do your own research. You'll find it's absolutely terrifying.
There are going to be boxes broadcasting 5G, this weapon, down every street, all over the world.
What we're concerned about 5G is that it's going to require a transmitter about every 3 to 10 homes. So you're talking about a small cell tower placed in front of your home.
Because at these high frequencies, you can't have...
It doesn't travel very well.
Yeah.
And people need to understand, it's 24 gigahertz to 90 gigahertz. These are not 2 feet. These are 2 inches to half an inch. And this is very dense wireless radiation hitting our bodies. What we know is that it pulses more, it's got higher frequency, more waves.
Doctors, environmental organizers, and concerned citizens got together and they called for the urgent stop to the deployment of 5G. They said that it's been proven harmful to human bodies, that this is an experiment on humanity, and that this should be called a crime under international law. Let's talk about today's technology, what we have going on today. Your phone is constantly sending electromagnetic fields in and out of each other. Whether or not you're receiving a notification right now, all of our digital tech sends this data back and forth, right, using these invisible microwave radiation signals, aka radio frequency radiation. Right. That's today's tech. We have every cell tower, every router constantly pulsing with radiation, whether or not you're using it. Science shows that this causes DNA damage, cancer, among other things. But don't take my word for it.
And that's just with 4G.
That's just with today's technology.
Before we get to 5G, right now you got some of it.
Spectrum. We've seen experiments with MIT where they've injected nanotechnology into rats and they've been able to switch the genes of the rats on and off using radio waves to operate the nanotechnology. You think about what's in the chemical spraying that goes on in the sky, the nanotech in all the foods. I mean, we're being set up in a big way, ladies and gentlemen, and the manipulation that comes through this 5G system is profound. It's absolutely off the charts. It's way beyond what many people are considering. You have the capability of manipulating vast sections of population, targeted areas of population, or targeting people individually, targeting crops individually, biology individually. You think about the nanotech is in everything, so anything that the nanotech is in can be manipulated through this 5G system. And the nanotech is in everything. They spray the nanotech in the skies, they put nanotech in the food, even with what we flush down through our drains in our own homes. Gets passed on down through the water system, so you see this in the food chain, and there's nanotech in the food that we're eating and nanotech in the stuff that we're washing down the drains, and of course it ends up in the river system, it ends up in the fish, ends up in the algae, ends up in everything. With all of the stuff that they're feeding us about fast communications and good downloads and good connection speeds and all of this sort of stuff, that's the secondary application of all of it, or even the third application of all of it, because ultimately this is military grade technology, and what it's about is control, and ultimately it's a weapons system. You know, it's a surveillance system and a weapons system. You can have people under surveillance and then you can weaponize it and target certain individuals for elimination or whatever, heart attack, cancers, whatever you want to do to them. You just got to look at it, folks, and think, well, how much can you trust your government? Can you really trust these people? Look what they've done to the world so far, and that's who is rolling this system out, apparently for our benefit. When you look at the internet, you look at what it's becoming something that we never wanted. I mean, we wanted the internet there so we could have access to information, we could have fast communication with each other, but now it's becoming a digital barrier between us and reality. It's becoming something that we must interface with in order to access the real world around us. And all of our information is being removed from us and put onto what they're calling cloud computing now. They're even saying that soon you won't be able to get hard drives for your machines. You won't need hard drives because everything will be on the cloud. And all that means is that it doesn't exist anymore. It's up there in cyberspace and you don't actually have access to it on your own computer. So you can't have access to your own things. You've got to keep them on the cloud, which means you can be locked out of all of your stuff at any time. That's what it's about. I mean, I know people that have uploaded their photos to video host programs and then suddenly they get locked out and they need to verify who they are in order to access their own stuff. I mean, this is ridiculous, folks. They do all this sort of stuff and they say it's for your security. We're locking you out of the system because you've changed location for the day, and so we don't think you're who you are, so we need access to all your devices and your cell phones and everything we can get to try to track you and triangulate you and get everything we can on you before we're going to let you have access to your own things again. That's what they do, and they call it security. It's not keeping you safe. It's keeping tabs on you and making sure they can lock you out at any opportunity, and they're just kind of showing you that they can do that, and you're agreeing with it by going along with it. And when you've got kids that are growing up into this system and everything that they do is online, everything they know is online, all their bank accounts, their shopping, their friends, their Instagram, all their connections to everything, their electricity bill, it's all online. And even their car keys and their access to their house becomes digital. Then any threat of being locked out of that is going to stand as a major obstacle to these people ever thinking for themselves in their lives. You know, you imagine what it would be like. You start to question the government's actions. You start to speak out about vaccines. You start to speak out about anything that means something to you, and suddenly you find yourself locked out of the system. Suddenly you can't access your stuff because none of your stuff is here in the real world anymore. It's all been moved into the virtual world because that's what we're doing. We're removing our access to everything around us by creating this digital interface between us and the real world, and any threat of being locked out of that interface is going to be a totally complete system of absolute control. That's how you get people, folks. You get them addicted to the tech and you make the tech essential in their lives, and then any threat of being locked out of that tech makes these people walk between the lines very comfortably. And these people will do anything the powers that believe they be tell them to do. And that may seem like a bit of a drastic scenario to be outlining, but it's true, folks, because we won't have access to all the things that we normally do.
And an internal medicine physician. This is what she has to say about what we're using today.
Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question. We have evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is the precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects.
The reason I think that it's dangerous is that there isn't any specific information to 5G, but we know that radio frequency radiation of 3G and 4G are associated with a whole variety of different human health effects. Everyone is going to be exposed to radio frequency radiation more continuously and at higher intensities, and that's going to cause more human disease.
It's a frequency. It generates a frequency, and it is of itself a frequency. Hate is a frequency, and it's different to love. You know, when you are in a room and there's lots of aggression and conflict and hatred, you feel it. What do people say? Oh God, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife in there. That is because the frequencies of hate and conflict have been so generated, they have changed the electromagnetic field of the room.
Okay, so 5G is going to be weaponized against us potentially.
Yeah, but the point being that they worked out the frequencies of various emotions, including rage and what have you. And basically, they can play across a community these frequencies without anyone knowing. and it starts to have an effect, and it starts to build rage, it starts to build anger, and people might not realize why they're feeling it, but they start to feel it. And then what they do is they trigger that with an event. Maybe some guy is attacked by the police or something, or somebody's arrested for something they didn't commit, and now there's the trigger. The blue touch paper's been lit of this manufactured frequency-driven rage, and you have mass riots and what have you, and people do things that they wouldn't normally do. And you can make people depressed. You know, the American military, they've admitted this. They have technology that fires frequencies at the enemy that basically breaks the enemy's spirit so they give up and put their weapons down. This is the technology we're dealing with. Now you take that into account and then you think of 5G. First of all, 5G doesn't travel well because of the nature of its frequency. So instead of big towers, as we have now, broadcasting these frequencies long distances, it won't do that. And it doesn't go through solid objects, what we call solid objects, very well either. So to overcome that, there are going to be boxes broadcasting 5G, this weapon, down every street, all over the world. You're talking phenomenal numbers of these boxes, broadcasting like on the lamp standard outside your children's bedroom and stuff, broadcasting this stuff. There's nowhere you'll be able to go where you'd be in a field of 5G. And another interesting thing, I don't know whether you've noticed this, but the story broke first of all in Sheffield, when the council started cutting down literally thousands and thousands and thousands of mature trees in urban streets. And there were big protests about it. You know, Sheffield claimed to be a green city, but all these mature trees were coming down, thousands of them. And my brother, he works as a call-out bus mechanic. So a bus will break down, they'll call him, he'll come down and fix it on the side of the road. So he's traveling all the time. And he's saying it's amazing how many mature trees are being cut down. Now, the worst nightmare of 5G in a street is mature trees, because it can't get through them. They don't want urban trees for 5G because it won't go through solid objects very well at all, and it doesn't travel far. So we're going to have this explosion of 5G transmitters, and then, going back to what I said earlier, and they've admitted this too, there's going to be like 20,000 satellites up there beaming 5G at the Earth.
What is our exposure in a day? It's not one cell phone. It's cell phones, it's multiple wireless networks, it's smart meters, it's cell towers. It's this sandwich, and it all adds up. And this is a serious problem for occupational health, public safety, and personal safety. And I feel that it's irresponsible to be even talking about the Internet of Things and rolling out a new untested technology when we're not even measuring what are our current exposures from the current